Here.
Vice President Cordova,
Here.
Secretary Hamilton,
Here.
Member Martin,
Here.
Member Egbert.
Here. We are all here. We have a quorum. Would you please stand and join Ms. Egbert in the pledges? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Please be seated. Okay. The next item we have is consideration of approval of the minutes from the January 28th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hamilton and a second by Mr. Cordova. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have consider approval of tonight's agenda. I approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Egbert, a second by Mr. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or want clarification about anything?
No, Madam President.
None. I don't have any
No?
questions. I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Hamilton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Ms. Russ, we got to you in lightning time.
Yes, you did. And so for my first item, we've got to wait for some of our kids to come into the room. So you can take a look at the names that are up on the board that were in your packet. These were our finalists from every campus K-8 that made it to the district Amazing Shake competition. And so we're going to take some time tonight to recap that a little bit and celebrate those kids. But we need a minute for them to get into the room and then we'll do some explaining.
How many rounds were there?
Well, I don't know. Every campus had, Ms. Smith will talk about that a little
Oh,
bit, but
okay.
every campus had their own
Perfect.
kind of guidelines of the rounds that they went through. But at Eastern, there were AM rounds and then PM rounds. So they identified the top 20 out of the 42 and then the top 3. So each campus kind of created their own experience. I think I'm going to ask you guys, you kids, to come on up here in the front because we've got lots of students. We'll set this up just a little bit. We have a choir activities going on tonight, athletics, so we don't have all of them. But these students are just so amazing. And we wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to recap and celebrate. And so what we're going to do first, and you guys are going to want to turn so you can see this, but we're going to show a little video some of you may have seen on Facebook, but it's just an overview of what their experience was when we went to Eastern. So half of you come this way and the other half the other way so people can see the screen. Let's split. There, Grayson this way. So if you could read that, you can see that part of what they focus on is developing those soft skills and that ability to make a good first impression and make direct eye contact and extend their hand and give you a good firm handshake and engage in conversation, all skills that are going to help them go into the real world and the workplace. And so one of the rounds that they participate in and that are winners, that if their trip to Georgia gets approved tonight, it's called Work the Room. And so they just go up to an adult, right, kids, and extend your hand, and they want to engage you in conversation. And so we just want to invite you to participate with the kids. We're going to ask the board members to come out to the front. We're just going to give some time for them to show you what the work the room aspect is and let you get to see some of these awesome skills that these kids have developed. So we'll give you the cue when it's time to reconvene, but let's just take some time for you guys to work the room and show off your stuff. Oh.
I'll start with you since you're. Yeah, and so she didn't make the. Are you excited Oh, okay, okay. Okay, I'm gonna check it out. So that's so sad is, so I like it, your dad's smiling, because always
Thanks, guys. Kids, if you'll just go back on the perimeter where you were, we'll learn a little bit more about what you were doing.
That was awesome.
I know.
On the page.
So before I give the floor to Ms. Smith, I just want to say that one of the teachers and I were just now talking about how it puts a lump in our throat to watch our kids have this confidence and be ready to go out into the world so successfully. And I want to thank many of the adults that you see standing around the perimeter as well. They help to organize either at their campus or to help with that day at Eastern. And so we've got a big team working on this project in our schools. And so I'm anxious for Mrs. Smith to talk to you a little bit more about what this is all about.
All right. Hi, I know some of you, but I'm Shelley Smith. I'm the principal of Parkview. I'm also the district RCA rep, and I am very, very happy to have that role. We have participated in the Amazing Shake, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. The Amazing Shake is more than just a competition. It's a transforming experience, as you saw here. You've seen children in hoodies for the last couple of years running around Clovis, but now you might run into a child who might ask you how your day is going and shake your hand, which is an amazing feeling. So it teaches our students confidence, poise, and the essential life skills they need to succeed beyond our classroom. Because as many of you know, we want these people to be hardworking citizens one day and do great things and make have life-changing roles for all of us. We've already seen incredible growth in our students who were once shy. So someone shared with me they couldn't even talk in front of one person, and then they were giving a speech in front of many. Now they're holding eye contact. They're speaking with conviction. They're carrying themselves with a level of professionalism that hasn't been seen in the classroom in quite some time. So we are seeing it in our community. We're seeing it in our schools. We let kids out of the car in the morning and you say, hey, good morning. And they say, good morning. How are you? And you're like, oh, this is lovely. So sometimes it's that little thing like a handshake, and the talking about eye contact and getting to know kids that really, really make that connection. And so we're turning them, and they're turning themselves into great human beings with lots of amazing skills. In Clovis, let me talk to you about in Clovis, every elementary school, every middle school, and the I Academy worked together. They did a work the room portion. They did a gauntlet round, which can sometimes it was like her and I were in an elevator, and I'm like talking this close to her. I'm like, so how are you doing today? And she's got to respond, and she's got 1 minute to respond. Some gave speeches while people threw popcorn at them. Some people went out to some fine dining and did some etiquette type routines, which, you know, we don't have a lot of that in Clovis, so that's really cool. We had a cooking show where the cook was so excited, but the kitchen was on fire, and we waited to see how the kid would react. A fake theft. We had all kinds of cool things in the gauntlet, and just how do they think on their feet? Because there's book smart, but there's also personal skills that the world is starting to miss because of screens. And so this really gets them out there and moving and doing the things. So we went from 13 schools, over 1,000 competitors, because 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders participated. We dwindled down to 43 students, 3 from each school site. And then we took 43 students to Eastern New Mexico, which was university, which was super cool because they kind of got to walk around the campus. They're all going to college now because they left the lunch there. So that was decided. Yeah, that was decided. We're all going to Eastern because the food is delicious. Carrie Limke helped us with that, so that was awesome. And then the 43 worked the room with people in the military, people from the community. Oh, we had hundreds of volunteers in every school site in town to get the kids voted on, judged, all those things. And so then our 43 became 20. So we had a top 20 at the end of and that's our top 20 behind you are posted. The colors are their houses. So that's the house system you've heard about in town. So we kind of see everybody was represented, which is really cool. And then we dwindled it down from 20. And then the last 20 had 3 stations. They had to sell an item they'd never seen. Sorry. They had to sell an item they'd never seen before. They didn't know what it was going to be. And then they had to answer a Miss America on the spot type question. Like, what could you do if you want, if you're president tomorrow, what are you going to do first? I don't know what their question was, but something like that. And then the last one was a 2-minute prepared speech, which they got to show who they were. So at the end of that, we had 3 winners. I'm going to tell you who our 3 winners are, and I want you guys to come up. Just smile and wave. All right. So, and if you ever have questions about any of this, please come see me. I will talk to you for hours. Okay. So in 3rd place, we had from Barry. She is a 5th grader, Miss Olivia Rodriguez. Thank you. Just stay there. And what I think is really cool, you stay there, baby. They all get called baby by me because I don't know all their names all the time. So the cool thing is 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade did compete. 4th graders were in the final 20. So we're 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. So it was really cool. So to be in 5th grade and go on, amazing. We got another 5th grader, Miss Macy Hardy from Mesa Elementary. And the Clovis Municipal Schools 4th through 8th grade winner was Miss Hartley Hamilton, 8th grade Gaddis. Was it 7th or 8th? 7th grade. 8th grade. Okay, make sure I got that right. Okay. So these were the winners. If anyone has any questions about any of this, call me over at Parkview. I will talk your ear off. So that's what's going on in Clovis Schools. We're making amazing changes and these students are leading it. So thank you guys. And thank you, board.
Thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your selves with us. It was awesome. We enjoyed it so much.
Yes.
We're sure you're all going to be very successful. There's no doubt about that.
So do you want me to move to my next item?
Sure, unless somebody else wants to say something.
No, just thank you for coming.
We're just basking in the.
We're really proud of you guys.
Really,
Really proud of you.
Success, right?
Thank you.
So have you hang on at least for the next item so you can hopefully celebrate with your top 3. So my next item is a trip request for these top 3 to travel, each with a parent and Mrs. Smith to compete. It's not just the national, it's the global Amazing Shake. And so they would participate. You can see on the agenda that potentially 2 or 3 days of one challenge after the next, with children who come from all over the world. And so we sent one student last year. She was a great representative, and we're hoping to have your permission tonight for these 3 to travel at the end of March and represent Clovis.
It's one consideration. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right, then we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
second that.
So Mr. Cordova made a motion and Mr. Martin seconded. All in favor? Congratulations. Have fun.
So maybe we just take a minute to let the
Yes.
students and their families.
And you'll come back and let us know how it goes, right?
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Mhm.
I look great pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the Hamilton is in the blood.
It is in their blood, isn't it? Like a quarterback.
So we have another trip request for the FCCLA from Gaddis to travel February 27th, a couple of days, for competition in Albuquerque. I don't see oh, there's Mrs. Gamble. Oh, okay. We have the sponsor here as well, if you have questions.
I don't have any questions.
We like sending the FCCLA. They always
Yeah.
do good things when they go. So thank you for taking kids. This is also an action item, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Hamilton and a second from Ms. Egbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, and one more trip request. In the first semester, our band travels every year to compete at in Utah, and the weather was just so severe that we had to cancel that trip. And so my final trip request is on behalf of our CHS Wildcat Band. They have the opportunity to go and perform at Six Flags in San Antonio. And so I'd really like to see them be able to take that trip to perform, and also to be able to use some of the funds that they specifically fundraised for a trip this year. It's better if we can use those funds within the year that they were raised for that intended purpose. And so you can see again a detailed agenda. I did ask them to pare it down a little bit, but they will be performing and representing Clovis at Six Flags in San Antonio with your permission on this trip.
I know there were some kids here who talked about how disappointed they were that they didn't get to go. So I'm glad we have an
But that was
opportunity
because of the
to.
weather, right? That was,
The-
we had that
the-
bad weather.
Yes,
Storm. that
yeah,
came
This is
through.
making up for that one. So
Right.
I'm glad
So, yeah,
the kids who raised the money have a chance to
to
spend.
go and, yeah, I agree.
So,
So with that, I'll make a motion
okay,
that our band travels to, San Antonio.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Cordova, a second from Ms. Egbert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Trip.
Next, we'll have an update from Ms. Sarah Williams from Canon.
Good evening, board members, president, superintendent. I always have to follow something amazing. Never par up to it. But I did get to be a part of the judging at ENMU, and those kids were phenomenal. I was not surprised seeing those winners. Those girls did amazing. I mean, they all did amazing. So I'm very proud of them. The only things we have going on right now is Tudos was moved to the fall. So I will, once I have a date, I'll update everybody on that one. And I did send a flyer out to Miss Russ that we are doing our annual STEM Day on 4 April. And that is the day where we have the students come to base and we do an entire 2 hangars full of STEM activities. We do static displays, and all of our units kind of show what their units are about for them. Last year, we had 350 kids from Clovis come on this field trip. So we're hoping this year we get more than that. We're hoping as many kids will sign up for it as possible. So we're excited for that. And other than that, just getting our squadron adoption going. We have, I think, 6 schools that we're actively adopting right now. So as soon as we can get the volunteer training all taken care of, we'll get with you. We should be good to go on that. So we're excited for that. So we appreciate you allowing us to be in the schools.
And Sarah, there's no limit to how many can attend on STEM Day?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I just told any principals that emailed me, I just need to know teachers' names, what grades and how many students. And that's just for me to do the schedule and making sure kids are eating at the right time that they need to be eating according to their age. And then letting the units know what ages are coming through so they can kind of change their speaking and what they're doing for age appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It looks like we don't have students from the high school today. My final item, every year, the board makes a recommendation for recipients for the New Mexico School Board Association Student Achievement Recognition. We typically bring you only one, but this year we're bringing to you the names of 2 teachers who have had really significant impact on academic outcomes in our district. The first of those is Donna Tivis, and when we actually get the awards back and bring them here, we'll talk more about what they've been doing in the district to have such an impact. But she's a very seasoned math teacher, and she's had great influence supporting, especially our teachers who are new to the profession or maybe entered through an alternative pathway. She's just a brilliant math teacher, and she has led a lot of planning and delivery of instruction. And if you'll recall, our 6th grade academy outscored pretty handily the state averages in math. And we really think that the model that we put in place that Donna was very significant in had a lot to do with that. So she would be the first. The second teacher is Catherine Sakani, who went back to the classroom this year at Mesa, but she was one of our reading specialists, structured literacy specialists. And even though we did away with that position because of budget concerns last year, she has continued to provide the letters training. And she's just such a willing leader and just a tremendous classroom teacher, and the influence that her work has had over K2 literacy. When we look at those scores, we see that we're having some really good performance in those grade levels as well. And I think that she is a big influencing factor there. So what we need tonight is your approval of these two folks. We will pay an additional fee. I think it's $50 for adding a second name, but we wouldn't want to honor one without honoring the other. And I'm really happy that we have classroom level folks that we're bringing to you this year as well.
That's awesome. Okay,
I second that.
I have a motion from Ms. Egbert, a second by Mr. Martin, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. That's awesome. Ms. Nigerville.
Good evening, President Osborne, members of the board, and Superintendent Russ. I have several things for you this evening. To start, we have some minor revisions to our discipline matrices for grades 3 through 6 and then grades 7 through 12. Ms. Russ mentioned at last month's meeting that we were reviewing some language given the recent changes in Title IX and other federal guidance. Many years ago, we made a change to the discipline matrices to move bullying on the basis of gender identity under the sexual harassment category. And that was to better align with CRDC federal reporting and some of the language used there. We're now reverting to the previous language of bullying on the basis of sex rather than bullying on the basis of gender identity. All the other content in both of those matrices remains the same. So I'm happy to stand for any questions about those.
Is it an action item?
It is.
I move we approve that.
You want to take them all at once, Mr. Martin? Shall we take them all at once? Because we're going to look at the 7-12, or do you want us to,
Okay.
do we need to take them individually?
I don't think you need to. They're identical. The language is the same in both.
Look at all the ones as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
So the same changes to 7-12?
Correct.
Okay, so A and B. Are you moving to approve
Yes,
A and B?
I am.
All right,
I'll second.
second. Motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. Hamilton to approve A and B updates to the discipline matrix. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
So next I have an amendment to our current New Mexico pre-K grant. It was originally approved for the years 2021 through 2025. And in the most recent amendment that was approved was included $140,000 that was allowable for transportation. It's not funding that we've been able to use for a variety of reasons. There are limits on what that money can be used for within transportation. For example, we could pay drivers and maintenance, but we can't purchase vehicles and it won't pay for mileage. And also the current availability of buses and drivers from our contractor isn't sufficient to provide this service outside of the current provision of transportation that we do have for students that are on an IEP. So essentially, this is a vote to amend the previous amendment that provided the funding, and it's just going to be us not accepting those funds from the PED. We're actually submitting a new grant for the coming years, and so this is really a grant that wraps up here in the next few months.
And so will the new grant have better?
Well,
options for
they will still allow it under the same guidelines. We just won't be requesting it. Yeah, but I am happy to report on a little bit of a separate note that we have opened to additional 4Y classrooms at Lockwood. And so we're excited to give even more kids the opportunity for pre-K.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're amending the NM pre-K application.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Hamilton, a second by Mr. Cordova. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And finally, I would like to provide you with an update on the upcoming changes to the graduation requirements. This is for incoming freshmen next year who make up the class of 2029. Brandon, if we could go to the slide presentation, as opposed to the handbook. Okay, then I'll just go over it and we can provide the slides later. The slides were just a summary of the information that I'm going to share. So there hasn't been any change to the number of required units. It's still 24 units to graduate, but they did make some changes around the courses that would qualify for those units. Some of the just high level changes, they removed several requirements. As an example, Algebra 2 will no longer be a graduation requirement. We are still required to offer it. We still have lots of students that will take that course as part of their pathway, but it's no longer a requirement for graduation. They have also removed the requirement that students participate in at least one either AP course, honors course, dual credit, or distance learning course. Again, we are still going to continue to offer those, but it's not a requirement that a student participate in one of those to graduate. And then finally, the state has removed the requirement that students engage in a demonstration of competency assessment. In the past, that has been SAT at the high school level. The state considers that those course final exams essentially are serving the purpose of demonstration of competency. And so they have removed that as a requirement as far as an assessment requirement for graduation. Some additions to the requirements for graduation is students are going to have the choice of 2-unit pathway concentrations in areas that they have of interest. And so we'll have some 2-unit pathways in CTE courses, in languages other than English, in fine arts, and in other electives. They are adding 2 units that are decided by each LEA. And so we do have some conversations that have already started at the high school, some teams that have come together to start building some recommendations to the district that will be coming to you in the future as some considerations for what those 2 units might consist of for Clovis schools. And then finally, there has been the addition of more options to meet core content requirements. And so as an example, we might have opportunities for work-based learning or certain CTE courses that could count toward English or math or science credits. And so we'll have some more information in the future as we make some recommendations in those areas as well. The only other change that I think is worth mentioning is for our students that are on an IEP, there has been a change made to remove one of the pathways to graduation. And so they've removed the modified pathway, which means that kids now have 2 options toward graduation. They have the standard pathway, which is the same as their general education peers. And then we have the ability pathway for students who have the most significant cognitive disabilities. They've removed that, that middle ground pathway. But that's the change that we're going to come see coming for our incoming freshmen next year, graduating in 2029. Can I stand for any questions that you might have?
So I had someone ask me that if we change the math requirement, does that mean we would be offering less higher math classes?
We do not anticipate.
That's what
not
I
at all.
said, but I was like,
No,
maybe
we still have kids that need
want
and
those.
want advanced math classes, and we plan to continue offering all of those. And we may be considering how we could expand those as well. So
Okay.
it just wouldn't be that as a requirement.
Okay. And so then upward counselors are going to be stressed a little while because they've got one set of
That's correct.
They'll have an overlap for a while.
overlap for a while. So kids for the next couple of years are still going to have to take the test, still going to have to take Algebra 2.
So they have to participate in it, but
Right.
but the state also did away with having a standard cut score. And so as long as they've had the opportunity to participate, we now have discovered that moving forward, as long as they had the opportunity in their 11th grade year, even if they didn't show up that day, they don't have to retake it as a
read
12th
that.
grader, but we will provide them that opportunity.
I don't think that's good if they know that, particularly, but you know, whatever. And I noticed that financial literacy is going to be an option under social studies, not math.
Well, they are
Is that
going
right?
to allow
Social
it to
studies?
be under math as well, but it
Okay.
could potentially meet, it couldn't meet duplicate requirements, but it could
I
be
did read
offered
that.
as a requirement in multiple places.
Right.
But it could only count for one of the requirements.
Yes.
Mm.
I did read that.
And that goes for any class. A
Interesting.
lot of changes.
Yes.
Mostly good.
Mostly, good,
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Employee services.
President Osborne, members of the board, have several items. First, letter A, our employee services report. Going into this season where we start looking at next year, sitting with one elementary position, 4 secondary positions is a really good space for us. So I'm excited about that. Our sped number continues to be high. We're still working with proximity and our international teachers. There's quite a bit of paperwork on the international piece, so that'll really kick in for 25, 26. But we also have several sped student teachers this year, unusually large amount. And so we're hoping to be able to pick up some of those. So I stand for any questions on the employee services report or the open position report.
None for me.
I appreciate how hard you guys are working to fill those jobs.
The next 2 items, C and D, I would like to do together. If you notice, the first one, 2425001, I brought last month. However, it didn't have the word consider by it, so I just want to do a cleanup on that. But we have 2 medical leave of absences for employees that I would like you to consider.
So we'll be voting on C and D.
Yes, ma'am.
I move to approve.
C and D.
We have a motion from Mr. Cordova, a second from Mr. Hamilton to approve items C and D, medical leave of absence. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you. The next 2, I'm going to do them in groups. So E and F. E are board policies that the recent Dear Colleague letter made canceled them out, and so we need to remove those. And so that's board policy A250, A0300, and G0200. Along with that, each policy has regulations or exhibits that go with it. You don't vote on those, but I have those in here. If the policy is removed, then the regulation and exhibit is removed as well. This basically just strikes the 2024 Title IX regulations that were put in by the Biden administration. And so I have those 3 items if you want to do them separately or if you have questions about them. But basically everything's a strike through. It's just going away.
On E and F,
On
E, F, and G.
E and on E and F.
Okay. I saw it's all a strike through, so it just went away.
We go back to the old old title.
yeah,
Yeah.
Which
And
is
that'll be
our
the
next
second
consideration
group
item.
of
Yes.
policy that I got before you.
Okay.
Okay, so,
I'll make a motion to approve.
okay. A second, we have a motion from Mr. Hamilton, a second from Ms. Egbert to remove policies related to Title IX, items E and F. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter G is considering board policy relating to the 2020 Title IX guidance that we had just several months ago. And so this is just a revision. If you'll notice on these, since they were completely stricken out, they're complete underlined. So it's like the whole policy coming back in intact from the Trump administration regulations. And so in this group, I have policy A250 and A300 that deal with Title IX. And along with those would come regulations which are under H1 through 5. So if you approve G, the regulations and exhibits go along with that. So I stand for any questions about the 2020 Title IX guidelines.
It's given us whiplash.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? Anybody? No?
I move
Okay.
to approve, items 1 and 2. Oh, let's see.
G and H, yes,
Yeah, G, H.
yes. Is
The policies, yeah.
there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Cordova, a second from Mr. Martin to reinstate the board policies relating to 2020 Title IX and the regulations. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I realize it sounds simple to just strike through and underline, but given the format that they come in, it's very taxing. And I did leave out inadvertently G0200, which I will bring back next month for consideration. And it is equal opportunity for employment. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Osborne, Superintendent Russ, members of the board. It's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a while since
Good to
I've gotten
see
to
you.
present. Mrs. Russ asked me to come and present to the board our draft calendars for next year. These are still in draft form. We've been working on revisions. In the last few months, we have built these calendars. We have taken them to our teacher leader group. We've gotten input from them, made some further revisions, and we are ready to present these drafts to our teachers and to the public and get input from them so we can get to a final vote and set our instructional calendar for next year. Before we get to looking at the actual calendars, just a few things I want to point out. First, we want to thank Mrs. Russ and her team that worked last year. Essentially, we were following the same rules we were asked to follow last year. And so all of the legwork they did to calculate the hours and how all the days were going to work and where they had to fit, all of that carried over. So simply all I did was just have to build new calendars this year. And so we appreciate all the work that they did. Just want to point out that the 180-day rule did get voted down. The judge removed that rule from us. However, we are still playing by the rule of making sure that every day has 5.5 hours in it. And so as Mrs. Russ said last month with the inclement weather days, we're still playing limbo a little bit. So all of these days are built following the 5.5 hour rule. If for whatever reason that 5.5 hour rule changes this year with the legislative session, we could potentially have some more freedom to make some more adjustments if we need to. A couple other things that I want you to notice before we get going is that we're not going to be reducing any instructional time or contract days, nor are we adding any instructional time or contract days. We're trying our best to keep it right where it was, not go overboard, but we also can't go backwards. As a reminder, all of our days have to be 5.5 hours. Currently, our elementary day is 6.42 hours. Multiplied by 172 days plus one combo day of 5.5 hours, which equals 1,169.74 hours of instruction at elementary. Our secondary day is 6.6 hours per day times 172 days plus one combo day at 5.5 hours, which will bring us to 1,170.70 hours. All three of these drafts can contain 174 instructional days, which includes the one parent teacher conference day we're allowed to count. And all of our teacher contracts will be 183 days. So even though the drafts are different layouts of the calendar, they all meet those criteria. Okay. Just a side note for all three calendars feature the first day of contracts as being a remote day so that staff complete their required Safe Schools training videos. All three calendars contain a full 2 weeks off for teachers at Christmas break. And all three calendars, we get school out before Memorial Day. It's a tight squeeze, but we've got them on.
No small thing.
So if you look at calendar A real quickly, this is literally an identical copy of where we landed this year. Our first teacher day would be on July 31st. We would have teacher prep from July 31st through August 6th. Students will return on the 7th. Kindergarten students would return on the 11th, and then we would start running our year. We do have a parent teacher conference in September. We do have the fall break in October. I want to thank my lovely assistant, Grayson, for helping me scroll. You can scroll a little faster, but
Thank you, Grayson.
we do have Veterans Day off in November, a full week for Thanksgiving, and then we have 2 full weeks at Christmas. And if you'll go back down, bud. Down.
Other way.
Up. I know, poor guys.
I would have said.
Your other down.
I would have said that.
I'm thinking how I scroll on a MacBook. He's thinking how he scrolls on a Chromebook. It all works.
So
Yeah.
the worst gauntlet.
Tomato.
The worst gauntlet ever. There we go. It is one of our favorite things about onboarding, by the way, is watching all new employees try to navigate a MacBook. It's very interesting. We come back in January. We start with 2 days of teacher workday when we get back, kind of roll through the spring. On this calendar, I just want to point out that we still have kept the Super Snow Monday on February 9th, President's Day on the 16th. We have spring break there in the middle of March. Spring holiday is much earlier in this calendar. One of the things that we talked about in teacher leaders is the fact that when we finish our spring holiday, we have a long run between the middle of April all the way to the end of school with no extra days off. So that is essentially version A. If you'll go all the way down for me, bud. So just some highlights here. You can see the breakdown of instructional days per semester. So total instructional days on this calendar are 172. Plus the half combo day and the last day of school, which would be the 5.5 hours of instruction, and then the rest of the day for teacher work day, plus the parent teacher conference day. Pretty well balanced 94 days in the first semester and 89 for teachers with 183. Just some notes, remote start on July 31st and a full week for Thanksgiving. If you go to calendar B. I'm gonna blow through this one really fast. Calendar B is identical to calendar A, except for the subtraction of Super Snow Monday. So we remove Super Snow Monday from February 9th, and we move that holiday, go all the way down for me into May. We put an extra holiday on May 1st. The only reason for that holiday is simply to break up the gap between spring holiday and end of school. So we sacrificed the extra day in February to gain one in May, just to give us one more 4-day week before the end of the school year. Go all the way down for me, Grayson. Thank you, buddy. So this looks identical in terms of number of days that have combo day. The balance of the contract days is pretty close. Again, just some notes. Remote start on July 31st, a full week for Thanksgiving break, and then we just move Super Snow Monday to create 1 day off in May. And then if you go to calendar C, calendar C is the only one that's very different. We delayed the start of school. So in this calendar, our first teacher report day would be Monday the 4th. We would have that entire week for teacher prep and meetings and getting people in the classroom. This would start school on the 11th. The change here is that instead of kids coming on a Thursday and having a couple of days to acclimate, we start school with a full week of school. Kindergarten would start on the 13th. The rest of the fall semester runs identical to the other calendars, except for Thanksgiving break. So if you pause there in November for me, thanks, Grayson. You'll notice that instead of getting a full week at Thanksgiving, we are eating up the Monday and Tuesday, kind of going back to the way it used to be. In order to delay the start and still finish before Memorial Day, that's where the 2 days had to be made up. And so in this draft, we'd have a little bit later start for the school year, but in order to gain that, we have to give up the 2 days at Thanksgiving break. We still have the 2 full days or the 2 full weeks in December. And then Grayson, if you'll go back to January for me. So this calendar still retains Super Snow Monday. We didn't have to get rid of it. And we are able to add a holiday in May. Go ahead and go down to May for me, bud. This still allows us to take an extra day off in May as well. So in order to get Super Snow Monday, take an extra day off in May and break up that, we do have to give it the 2 days of Thanksgiving break. So go all the way down for me, Grayson. So again, same count in terms of student days, same kind of balance for teacher contract days. Just some things to note: later start in August with a full week for teacher prep. We do give up 2 days of Thanksgiving break in order to end before Memorial Day, but we do get an extra holiday in May in order to make up for that long stretch. So as I said, those are the 3 drafts that we're working with right now. We are going to be putting these out to teachers and public for input and eventually take a vote. And then once we get that narrowed down, I'll bring back a final version of what has been voted on for the board. Stand for any questions if you have any.
I got a question. One of our biggest, got several, but the start of school and the fair. Would there be any conflicts?
I don't know if there'll be any conflicts between the start of school and the fair, although we had to do away with our extra fair days in this last calendar. And so we weren't able to put those back in through this one. So
What's the other one? Can't think of it better. I know the fair. Oh,
Graduation.
graduation. Yeah, right.
We'll check the 5-year.
yeah, we'll have to just check. Yeah, but if we, as far as I know, if we stand where we are, I think all of our thoughts would be is that we would end school on that Friday, and that would also be the day of graduation or that Saturday. So
I think the NMAA schedule's out already,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
For
it is.
years in advance, so we can at least.
we'll be
look that
double
up.
checking all those once we get closer to the final draft. So thank you, Ms. Russell.
Thank you for the hard
Good
work.
job.
Good job. Good job. Good place.
Thank you.
Good choices. Okay. Financial numbers.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Russ. Tonight, I have for your consideration the recommendation to dispose of miscellaneous maintenance items such as a snow plower, a tiller, and 3 mowers. And I stand for any questions.
Mr. Martin, that's your favorite thing.
Highly collectibles.
Apparently not. Need a motion and a second to dispose of.
Move
these
that
items.
approved.
We have a motion from Mr. Martin, a second from Ms. Egbert to approve the disposal of the items. So all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item I have for your consideration is the second quarter cash report. And I stand for any questions.
I don't have any.
I don't have any questions. I have none. I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
A motion from Mr. Hamilton, a second from Mr. Cordova, all in favor of approving the quarterly cash report? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And for the final item, I'll have Mr. Sparks come up here to go over the impact aid application.
President Osborne, Superintendent, and rest of the board, what you have before you is the impact aid. It's really an important funding, and people have asked me, what is really the impact aid? This is where we gain funding from properties that we don't get tax revenue on. So for example, we have the Clovis Apartments, and we have the base housing and the base. We don't get a tax base on that because of the federal properties. So this is an additional. So what you have before you is our student count, how many military were living on base, how many military are living off base, how many people are in Clovis that work on the base that have children, and then it's also with students with disabilities. I stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Question on
Nope. It's a consideration item.
to approve. Second.
Motion to approve from Mr. Cordova, a second from Mr. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Thank
carried.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. Open forum.
Thank you, Madam President. I have Charles D. Ortero regarding open forum, American history and education.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, President Osborne, board members, and Superintendent Russ. I understand a little bit about the change of curriculum, but I figured things need to change somewhere, somehow. So I'd like to present this today to maybe see if either one of the board members or the superintendent or future board members might be interested in this consideration. After I've been coming to the board meetings, I see that we salute the flag and we say the Pledge of Allegiance. And in that place, it really hit me because a patient of mine gave me a book during that time to read. It's 100 Bible verses that made America great, defining moments that shaped our enduring foundation of faith. It's a 2020 book. Even I have a short time to read the 200 stories of people in America, men, women, Black, white, American Indians, 2 pages that could be easily read in English classes or history, that talk about strong, bold people that understood one nation under God. And it really hit me as I was just thinking and praying tonight about it, indivisible, how strong we were as a country when we lived life that way. These, like the young people today, when I saw the amazing shake, could teach people how to stand boldly for truth, for their belief in a God. And I'm hoping that since it is history, I mean, it can be verified by however we need to, it would be really encouraging to different grades on how other people before them were bold in their faith, bold in their country. And when I saw this board, they talk about how the education system was created by strong and dynamic people. So I'm hoping that if you had a chance, I purchase it, but I understand I'm not supposed to for each of you. So I hope you might read it, or anybody who's watching online. It's amazing at what we can do as strong Christians standing up for this country under God, then being indivisible. And I would hope that whatever it takes to get some of this curriculum or to allow it and put it into our libraries would be something this board and this administration could consider. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have Joseph Sandoval speaking concerning the agenda item Title IX.
Say thank you guys for having me today. I'm just coming up here to talk to y'all, just to free my mind. I feel very uncomfortable with the movement, with how y'all are allowing just transgenders and allowed in the boys' restroom or the girls' restroom, you know? And I feel like women personally more are probably gonna get affected by it than men will, because it's literally having another man in the restroom as a girl. And I know I'm not perfect. I don't envy them because I have a cousin herself that she thinks she's bored. I love people for who they are. It's just, it bothers me, you know, because you're practically shutting the door of heaven on their face, you know, giving them opportunity to see God and truly who He is, you know, and it's allowing them to stay stuck in their ways. It's allowing them to make it seem like it's okay for them to be the way that they are, you know, when it's not, you know, I'm not perfect. No one is, but I can just, it says in His word, you know, it was created for man for being man and to go with the woman, you know, and when you allow them to stay stuck in that spot and you allow them to feel comfortable, oh yeah, I can go to the restroom with a boy. I feel like I'm there, so yeah, I can go to the restroom, you know, I can go there, you know, and you're just making them feel comfortable with the fact that they are, yeah, you know, they can truly believe that they're a man or that they're a woman, you know, and it's not right, you know, and if you want them to experience the fullness of God and experience and see heaven, you know, when you shut that door on their face, like what awaits you when you go to see, you know, what awaits you when you stand at that throne, you have to face God. It's like you shut the door on one of my people, so I'm shutting the door on you, you know, and it's not right, you know. And you can, it's very disrespectful, especially to me, because I'm willing to help kids that are stuck in that mindset of feeling like they're this way or that they're transgender because they're not. Because how are we gonna have strong men to build buildings? How are we gonna have strong men to play football or to do the things that they do, you know? And if we don't have men and they want to be women, how are we gonna have it, you know? How are we gonna have our buildings and structures that are gonna be built? How are we gonna have everything? Everything's built by men, by their hands, because they're strong, they're able. God gave them power. He gave him the authority and dominion over everything. And when you make them feel comfortable, when you make them feel safe inside of that environment where they feel okay with being that way, it's not right. You're giving them an opportunity to stay stuck. And also the furry is this detrimental to my education. And there's other kids that could agree. I know so many, even probably teachers, but they can't speak up about it because they're faced with losing their jobs, losing their education. They're what's taking care of their family each and every day. I'm just wanting to let y'all know and inform you that these kids are lost and they just need guidance from God, because I was once lost and I got found. I wasn't perfect. I truly see what life is through the lens of God, and I'm hoping that y'all will see what God has said for each and every one of the kids, because y'all are about growth and growing kids, and I just hope y'all want them to grow and see the future and how bright it is, and with God.
Thank you. Thank you.
Haley Drake, speaking in open forums specifically regarding the topic of policy.
Hello, and I'm sorry that this sounds a little redundant. I'm just hoping that maybe I could get an email response or a response after the meeting, because I do have some of the same questions. I'm very thankful that President Trump has forced changes in Title IX policy, but I'm still concerned because we all know that New Mexico HB 207 also provided accommodations for boys who think they're girls or vice versa to use the bathroom of their choice. So I'm still wondering, what is the district's policy on that? Are we still going to continue to allow it, or will it also be changed like Title IX has been changed? And so I don't know if I need to email you guys. I guess I could email all of you after I leave here, and maybe then I'd get a response. I'm not sure. We're also watching bills in Santa Fe that would impact sex ed, and it would then be taught at middle school. It would also include the transgender ideology, and it would offer up abortion as a option after pregnancy at the middle school age. And so while we're watching that closely and praying it's not passed, I'm wondering, how will parents be informed of policy changes? And I'm asking the board members if any of you would be willing to put it on the agenda so we could hear your ideas and maybe bring it to a vote to change and update parent notification on policy changes. When there's a weather alert, we get a text, we get a robo-phone call, we get an email, it's blasted on Facebook. And we know some of the policies get shoved on our schools, and it's not your choice, but it is your choice if we're informed and well-informed or not. And so I'm asking the board if somebody would be willing to put that on the agenda so we could change and update parent notification policies. And then I also noticed that there is a work study session to be held on March 12th, and I wondered if that was an open meeting and people were invited to that or not.
And then as far as policies, I also am concerned with the whole furry policy because they are not a protected class. And even when they're not in full mask, which is happening, and even when they're not wearing their tail, which is happening, they're carrying these items. We would not allow gang members to carry around bandanas showing, some with blue and some with red, because we would know what their intent with that was. But we are allowing students to carry around their furry masks and tails. And then we're saying, well, they're not wearing them, but they're carrying them to make a stance, to let everybody know. And that is just as disruptive and uncomfortable for all of the other students. So I would just like to know, and I say it a lot of the times, like how best we can work with the board, work with the school district, parents and teachers alike, so we can all be on the same page and work on our communication so that you guys can see what's going on in the schools and we can know the policies that are coming down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Osborne, can I weigh in on
Please,
258?
Yes, sure.
Everything else is relatively the same, but I do want to let you know, Mrs. Drake, that I spoke this afternoon with Senator Woods. I've also been watching House Bill 258. It's in his committee right now. It passed out of the first committee. I've been watching for it to move on. I shared with him that we are greatly opposed in this part of the state. Talked to him about the petition. The thing to understand at this time in the legislative session is that emails and petitions and so forth, oftentimes they don't have time for that. And so his message back is either signing on to the Zoom. I am telling you that I will go to Santa Fe, but I'm not going to go by myself this time and come home and get beat up. If there is a group of people that want to go, I will stand up on behalf of our community, but I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm watching it every day to see if it's moving. Senator Woods assured me that he would do what he can to prevent it from moving out of his committee. So know that we're working on this side.
All of us here, we will go with you. And that's all we're asking is for you guys to work with us. And we will go with you. We will stand with you. Our church will stand with you. And if it is still passed, all we're saying is communicate that with parents. And let us know if policy is forced on us from the state, so parents will be motivated to vote for change instead of pushing it under the rug to keep parents calm in the right now. But then parents often are lazy. They're not voting. They're not going out in mass numbers. But if they knew what was getting pushed on our kids and that the state is saying you can use the bathroom you identify with. Yes, we will build single stall restrooms and your kids who are uncomfortable to vote, but those transgender students will get to vote. If parents knew that, they might be motivated to vote. And that is my only cry. Let parents know what's going on so we can vote for change. We want to stand with you, and we would be honored to go with you to stand against that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle or Nicole McMath, speaking in open forum specifically regarding the topic of her student.
Discipline,
Discipline.
actually
Discipline.
discipline, right? No specific student.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a child. I have pulled him out of the daily school life. He now attends the, I don't know what it's called, the online.
iAcademy.
No, it's not the iAcademy. It's the online, the virtual ingenuity. Because he got a job. Instead of going to school, I pulled him out of freshman academy for the furry reason. It was distracting. He was not learning. It affects him to this day. I mean, he does the online school and he works, but he's missing out on the socialization of school because he's not with kids his own age that have his interests. He doesn't like going to school in a classroom though because of the people dressing up like the cats and the dogs and meowing, and it's a distraction for him. He already has a hard enough time learning. And so I did the online program that you guys offer for him, and it's working. It's not a great setup for him, but he will graduate in a couple years. And my other concern is I have a grandson that will be coming up through the school system in the next couple of years, and to see this kind of stuff that is put on that really scares me for his future, just moving up that way as well. So, and I'm with Haley. I will gladly join on that trip and make it a better. I grew up in the school system since first grade. I loved it. My kids hate it. We don't have the resources or the time or anything like that. My husband and I are both working parents. He works out of town.
I work full-time. There's just not other resources for us to take our kids to another district when this district used to be so great and accommodating to the parents. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements, Ms. Russ? Back to this.
Okay, we will have a board session, and to answer the question that is open to the public, it's a little bit different format for a work study session. It is less formal, but the public can sit and observe. That will be 11:30, should be AM. We won't keep you here near midnight on March the 12th.
Well, why not?
And that is specifically looking at an update from our strategic planning committee. March 14th is considered a day-to-day. However, there may be some individualized conferences that take place on that day as needed as well. So there's no school for students on that day. Spring break will be held March 17th through 21st. Campuses and district offices will be closed. And we will reconvene for our next regular Board of Education meeting, March 25th, 5:30 PM. Okay.
Next item is to recess into executive session.
Madam President, excuse me, I'll make a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to NMSA 10-15-1-H, subject to limited personnel matters to discuss superintendent's evaluation and contract.
So I have here, motion.
I'll
Oh,
make
a second. I mean,
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are recessed into executive session. Okay,
Right.
Mr. Cordova,
All right, I would like to make a motion to reconvene from executive session where only the items previously announced were discussed.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
I'd like to move to extend Superintendent Russ's contract from June 30th, 2025 to July 1st, 2028. The board will increase her current base salary to the percentage approved by current base salary by the approved percentage of increase that staff will receive from the legislator per Superintendent Russ's request, not to exceed the amount of increase of any employee for any employee. That, I kind of butchered that, but
Yep,
you guys,
the point of it.
you get the point, right?
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You rehired unanimously. Congratulations. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.